Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I thought I would cover for you guys a little bit of definition of terms because I have people oftentimes ask this and they get confused as to what concurrent periodization means. They get confused as to what conjugate method means, what the Westside method means, all these things. And I think we should clarify this a little bit for people because a lot of people really and truly get the words conjugate and concurrent confused, and I really don't understand why they do. I think there could have been some other YouTubers out there that really mixed those terms up incorrectly and maybe it spread around. So that being said, concurrent periodization is simply a form of periodization in which you can combine multiple training elements in the same block or the same week. What does that mean? 1 rep max lifts are a training element, right? Doing high rep work, doing the 10 to 12 rep range is a specific performance element. Doing the 5 to 8 rep range is kind of its own performance element and rep range. Doing dynamic effort work or compensatory acceleration is its own thing. Normally, when you look at classic linear block periodization, these things are broken into phases. And I'm not saying it's always done exactly this way, but to give you an idea, let's say you were going to go through some different rep ranges. You might run a 3-week block of, I don't know, 10 to 12 reps, right? For all 3 weeks on all your big exercises. Then the next 3-week block, called a mesocycle, what do? You go to a next lower rep range, right? And you might do, I don't know, 6 to 8 reps, okay? 6 to 8 reps. Then the next 3-week block, you might drop down and do 5s. Then the next 3-week block, you might drop down for the final cycle there. You might do triples, 3 sets of 3 or whatever, then drop down to maybe a max triple, start bringing in some singles, maybe start doing multiple singles or doubles the final week. And then after all of this, you might test all of your 1 rep maxes at the end. Okay, that would be a textbook example of classic linear block periodization. Linear periodization. Concurrent means we do different stuff on different days. Concurrent periodization could mean that you do 3 rep sets mostly on one day with maybe some supplemental work at higher reps. And you might do 10s on a different day. Right? We might do 10s on a different day. We might do 1 rep maxes on one day and then speed work on a different day. Now we're getting over to the Westside aspect of it. But that's not that concurrent periodization is automatically Westside or conjugate. Right? Do people understand the difference? Concurrent periodization means we're periodizing our training with different stuff on different days as far as the performance elements. So doing max work on one day and speed work on another. Max work on one day and then maybe your repetition method on another, if we were going to talk about it in the Westside sense. But it could also be that you're doing mostly 5 rep sets on one day and then 10s or 12s on another. In other words, moderately heavy weight versus really lightweight with higher reps on different days of the week. And then you program it moving forward from there. So that's concurrent periodization. Because I've had people come to me and say, but I thought concurrent periodization is where you just rotate big exercises, different lifts. No. Now that's conjugate. If you are continually rotating your big heavy movements sequentially, we would call that conjugate, right? The conjugate system. More or less, which means we're going to hit all these different lifts. And that means that we would count what I'm doing right there above is a different form of squat. We might do one day, you might do a low box squat like that with a safety bar, right? And take it to a 1 rep max. You might do a box squat with a straight bar, or a box squat with chains, a box squat with bands, a normal back squat, a deadlift, a deficit deadlift, a sumo deadlift against bands, right? Where you're changing around your exercises. Okay. That's conjugate. And I think there's even for me sometimes been some confusion as to what is the difference between the conjugate method, which is, you know, what Louis Simmons likes to call kind of the Westside method. But he'll explain oftentimes that the conjugate means we have a conjugate sequential system, meaning we do all these lifts to maxes and then we know that it carries over and eventually takes us to our classic lift to a max. It carries over. And anyone who's trained this way knows for a fact it carries over. It's not hypothetical. Anyone who's done it has seen it themselves. They know it works. There's no need to debate it further for anyone who's actually gone and done it. They understand. I've demonstrated it firsthand. Okay. So conjugate means we're rotating lifts. And a lot of times people get those two confused. They get those confused because they're thinking that the concurrent does that. I'm not sure. It might have been Alpha Destiny, and I don't want to say that it was him who said that because I could have misinterpreted stuff people have come and asked me questions about, so I don't want to place blame when I don't know for a fact. Okay, so I want that to be clear. I've had some people say that they think it was him. It's like, okay, and it might have been, and it might not have been. So, you know, don't lay the blame squarely on him for that. But that's what conjugate means. So what's the Westside system? Well, that means basically you take the whole conjugate method and do it kind of like they do at Westside. Doesn't mean it's true Westside. You're not training true Westside, because to train Westside, you have to probably be at Westside, right? I would go so far as to say if Louis Simmons or at least one of his coaches isn't probably instructing you at their facility, you're not really training Westside. But you could be training very similar, using their principles and concepts, which would mean what? We use the conjugate method, right? You probably have 2 max effort days every week, rotating different maxes. You probably are doing dynamic effort work on the other 2 days, or repetition effort work, all done on an upper lower, right? Probably what we're doing. And you're doing very, very large amounts of supplemental work, all rotated into concurrent periodization. Because that all flows in together, doesn't it? The Westside system basically takes a concurrent periodization approach with conjugate style training of rotating lifts and weaves it into an entire system based on a lot of the Russian texts, based on Prelepin's chart, based upon things like Louis Simmons' experience working with all these lifters and other athletes for decades. Right, he coaches elite athletes in a lot of sports, and most of the conjugate coaches who came out of Westside coach athletes in quite a few different sports because it works, it carries over. The whole system itself works very, very well for most sports as a baseline system. So what are our differences here? What are our fundamental differences? Well, concurrent periodization is a form of periodization that basically just says we're training multiple elements on different days, usually in the same week. Right? And that we're not doing it in a linear fashion over the course of multiple weeks or months. Undulating periodization is another type of concurrent periodization, by the way. For those who are looking at that, they're like, what about DUP? DUP is another subcategory of concurrent periodization, but it's still just it's a form of concurrent periodization. Why? We're utilizing multiple different rep ranges or performance elements on the same days, or on different days in the same weeks. If you're rotating your max lifts around, even like if you guys look at what I was doing, I was saying, look, what I'm doing right now is still conjugate when I was doing daily maxes followed by large volumes of supplemental work. When I wasn't doing the speed work, I was doing it every day. Well, that's still conjugate because I was doing a wide variety of exercises, and at one time I was even doing them randomly with a random number generator, picking off dozens of exercises I had on a list, and you just max that day to whatever came up randomly. Okay? That's still a form of conjugate. So we're rotating max lifts all the time. Trying to hit PRs on new lifts all the time. Whereas in the Westside Method, and again, it's not really Westside. I always make that distinction because people call it that, and it upsets Louis, and I like Louis. He's a mad chemist, mad scientist. And, you know, I'd rather not offend the guy because I happen to be a fan of his work, and I appreciate it. So I don't want to call it training Westside. We'll call it the Westside Method. Taking their methodologies and saying, hey, this is great, this works. Can I apply it at home or at my own gym? Which is, again, weaving all this together into their specific style of training of max effort, dynamic effort, the way they rotate it around, using a lot of their preferred supplemental work, using their programming for the speed work, the dynamic effort work, right? Using their basic system to the best of your ability. right? Using their system to the best of your ability with the equipment that you have and the knowledge that you have. It may not be perfect. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.